rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zimet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zimet Show, where being that best you gets easier and easier with every guest I bring on. So today my guest is calling in from South Carolina. Her name is, let's see if I can get this, Roshana Price. Did I get it? Yes!
Yes.
Oh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so what does Roshana do out there in South Carolina?
Roshana helps people discover, guard, and give their awesomeness to the world. So
my gosh. I say that again. I like the way that just ran out.
Yes, so that's what I do. I help people discover, guard, and give their awesomeness. As the trademark owner of the phrase, giver of awesomeness, that's what I do.
Ooh, that is just like exciting. You know, because it actually really fits in what I do, because I'm an identity revelation specialist. So what I do is I help people discover their own self-archaeologist to move away the things that they're not. And when they do that, they find just what you said, their awesomeness, right?
Yeah, that's inside, that's been hiding.
Exactly.
That's been wanting to get out, yes.
Right, you know, and it's interesting how we get caught up in that inner conflict, you know, with ourselves, you know, just through events and things that we experience through our lifetime, starting at a really early age, you know, depending on what we've gone through. You know, everyone has a story, right? And that's kind of what this show is all about, you know, is being able to expel that story and become that expression of it, you know, and know that you're not alone out there. And when you move that out of your body, it's like, it's so freeing. And it almost empowers you, right? You know, and it's like, wow, you get that little taste of, you know, there's something more down here than I thought there was. It's refreshing, right? Have you found that with the clients that you talk with people when you start pulling out their awesomeness?
Absolutely. It's everything from, I feel like I've been reborn, to comments like, I'm meeting myself for the first time and I like me. All of these clients that are saying things like, I love myself, or I didn't know I could do that, or I didn't know I had that much strength. It's like, yes, and you have more. Let's keep exploring.
Yeah, oh, I just, my whole body is just like rolling in chills here, you know, because it's so true, right? And when we get that opportunity to become that expression, you know, in kind of like a safe zone, right? Yeah. And I think this movement, I mean, it's been going on for a while, but I feel, in what I've seen with the guests that I've had on the show and talking with other speakers and other practitioners and stuff, that this whole COVID thing has just kind of brought all of this more to light, because, you know, everybody's vying for space and connection, right? Having that connection again, because of being isolated in the human body, and person wasn't meant to be, you know, separated. And so coming together in summits and expos and just one-on-one in Zooms and challenges and everything, that exposure, you know, to the world of trauma, shall we say, you know, because there's trauma is small or big, you know, those levels of fear and everything, where now it just like starts to shift. And people are starting to see it and hear it because they're binge watching anything and everything, right? And if they're looking to make that change, now they're experiencing it from so many different avenues. And I started this show just prior to this pandemic happening. And, you know, but it's just absolutely exploded since then. And we're working in the virtual reality world with the little avatar world, which really bring that connection back together because there's no social distancing there.
Right.
You work with the mindset, right? Because the mind is part of that connection with that awesome self. So when we're in the virtual reality world, what happens is that separation piece is gone. You don't get the fatigue like you do when you're on a Zoom or on a webinar where, there's a lot of static or there's just dead space and there's nobody else around and you wonder, am I the only one here? So your mind starts going off. But when you're in the little avatar world, everybody is there side by side. So it gives that perspective, and that's what the mind works on. Oh, there's somebody next to me. Okay, I can talk to them, right? And so it brings that togetherness back together, and that's kind of what we're all about. And we've taken that gaming platform, turned it into education, and turned it into business. And it's actually where business is going to be going more and more and more. Not just because of the pandemic, that was just kind of a trigger to get it, exploited even more. But people are finding that it works better, and it stops pollution because you don't have to go to the office when you can actually come on here and get into a boardroom setting type of thing, have your business meetings, be able to have right there at your fingertips anybody in the office that you need to communicate with because everybody is on the platform doing their own little thing, whatever, and then they pop up and it's like, hey John, can you meet me over here? I got something I need to ask you. So they leave the boardroom, they go over here. It's amazing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you just talk about it, but being able to get into the virtual reality world, that we've created is pretty phenomenal. We take people in there and kind of do demos and let them see what it's all about and how they can incorporate into their business, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I am tracking. You're actually speaking to the engineer in me, since that's how my profession began, industrial and systems engineering, and studying human factors, ergonomics, designing equipment, office spaces around how best the human body works. And in working in manufacturing, a lot of people get fatigue and get cumulative trauma disorders like carpal tunnel and other things from the repetitive motion.
Right.
When you can go into a virtual reality, however, you don't actually have to use your physical body. You can use the powerful mind, the brain, which has so much more stamina than our actual physical bodies do. So I love it. I love what you're saying. And I think it also creates a safe place for people, especially when people have been coming together, especially before the pandemic. It's happening now as well sometimes. Right. But there is a human condition that happens of like everyone comes into the meeting, everyone sits in the same place. There's kind of this hierarchy of who sits where, and then
it's so true. That is so true.
Yeah. And so the virtual reality piece now allows everyone to have a more freedom around that. And I could see how that would be hugely impactful, especially in environments and in cultures where it could be highly toxic face to face because there's dominant personalities.
Oh yeah.
Virtual reality can actually neutralize
some
of those
all inhibition leaves, so yes. Any inhibition that you may have goes bye-bye. And interesting enough, and thank you for sharing that, because that is really key, and the environment that we're creating in there. The mental health community has been using the virtual reality worlds now for, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years, 6 years, something like that, right? Where they take people that have major anxieties, maybe some of the PTSDs, just different fears and phobias, and have placed them in the virtual reality world to help them overcome that. Exactly. And you, as well as most of us that are in this speaking industry, know that people would rather die than stand on stage and talk to someone, right? So
yeah, but in the virtual reality space, it can be whatever they need it to be to overcome that fear. Absolutely.
Right. Oh my gosh. I mean, I have a dear friend of mine, that is very self-conscious. And again, there's a lot of people out there that are self-conscious, so in the avatar world, you don't have to worry about your makeup, you don't have to worry about your clothes, you don't have to worry what you look like, because a lot of people, there's that judgment thing. So that fear of judgment, the fear of not being accepted, and maybe your story isn't good enough, or maybe people are gonna, who do you think you are, all these crazy wild thoughts that go on, And so, the first time we had her speak because we do events at the last Saturday of every month. We're doing events, right? And we have, it's beautiful. I'll have to take you in there and show you. Okay. But she was on that stage, and it was, it was a 30-minute slot, whatever. And she started talking about, how virtual reality was used in the mental health department, and how things shift and how the mind works with it. I mean, she's a genius in what she does. She has all these credentials, and we had talked about like a month before that. I stayed with her for a month, and I said, why aren't you doing this, right? And it was like, well, there's nobody that wants. I said, that's crap, come on, this is up here, right? So we started building her business around it. And when she was on that stage talking, everyone is on the platform in their little avatar. We're all sitting in the chairs. She's up here on this big stage, in her avatar form. I have never seen her perform like that before. She was so spot on, confident, and it's almost, you could feel the energy in on the platform, and it was like I'm watching all these little avatars. It just they're not moving, but it just felt like their energy was moving to the edge of the chair, just waiting for the next word. It was so quiet in there, you could hear the pin drop. And I'm because I'm an observer, right? And I'm watching this. Now I know Lynn's story because I've known her for 6-8 years, right? Something like that, a long time. And, but to watch her perform, and the expression in her voice, and the confidence that she came across with, because these are things that she knows, right? And now we're on 45 minutes, right? And so, so I just message her, all right? I say, Lynn, we're coming up on an hour, because we had other speakers,
Right.
And she, of course, here you are in the avatar world, so it doesn't matter. You can pick up that little phone and take a look, right? And she's like, oh, wow. Because she totally lost track of time because she was so in her element. Yeah. Now, I've seen her talk on real stages, right? Short, sweet, to the point, gone.
Okay.
Right? And she really has to work herself up to get on that stage. Right? Mm-hmm. But she didn't when she was in the virtual reality. And, and then she's apologizing. So, no, don't apologize, because the information she gave was so pertinent. And everybody was coming to me. They came to her, and was like, oh my God, can we get her on as a speaker again? Can she say, tell us some more of this stuff? So that's what happens. When you move out of your fears, you move away from the things you're not, you discover that awesome self, and to be able to share this type of platform, and I would love to collaborate with you to maybe where you can start taking some of your clients in here and just expand them to a whole different level and speed up that process, because that's what we're finding happening, where people are overcoming obstacles so much faster.
That's powerful. Time is a great indicator of when we're operating with our awesomeness, with the gift and the talent, the natural way we're supposed to show up. Because to your point, Lynn's 45 minutes went so quickly, it probably felt like 10 or 15 to her.
That's what she said. She said, oh, I thought I was only up here about 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's when people ask me, how do I start to discover my awesomeness, Roshana? How do I know what that is? I say, start to pay attention to time. Because when you're in it, when you're really in it,
right,
an hour will feel like 10 minutes. And when you're not, 10 minutes will feel like an hour
Or longer,
or
right?
longer.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Time is a great indicator. And then what I love about all of that is that, especially for Lynn and others watching or that know her story, it's evidence. And so
Yeah.
often we need evidence of, well, if that was Lynn's story and my story might be a little different, but it's similar, what could I do? What could I
Right.
accomplish?
Yeah, so what we're looking and the audience out here who's listening right now, if you are interested in wanting to be a speaker on these stages, what we're doing is putting together a program, for speakers or those that want to be, and we'll help, get your speeches ready and everything, is to have an opportunity to get on different stages in that environment and be up there in front of an audience and just speak it out, right? You can sell from the stage, or you can just send a message, or you can have some of both, right? So we're putting together a program for that, right? Which is going to be really, really a lot of fun, right? And I'm going to take a short little break here because I want to share something, that a friend of mine and I are doing. And it's a little course called the Mindset Shift, which is putting those pieces of you back together. So where you're building that heart-mind connection, right? And if anybody is interested in wanting to be a part of that program, all they need to do is follow the little links down here at the bottom. You can go to bit.ly/mindset journey, which is exactly what we're talking about here, or just text the word mindset to 888-527-7146. And this helps, what we've just talked about, helps you put that science with the physical things and the action steps together to create an end result and to help you move through there faster. So that's available as well. So let's go back to Rashana, what you're doing here and how you're making a difference in people's lives. I mean, a huge difference with what you're doing, because you are so speaking to my heart. And to be able to work with women of this caliber that are doing this kind of work, because I think now more than ever, and I want you to speak to this a little bit to our audience, why it's so important even now more than ever, because of this separation and because of some of the fear things that we hear in the news and stuff, and how impactful it is and how it discredits the South, kind of takes away the awesomeness, and why what you're doing here, and what a lot of us are starting to open up here and support people out there. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, now is a great time. I mean, the pandemic showed up to help us really see who we really are, I believe. It kind of showed up to shine a light and say, all the things that you've been listening to or believing, or if you have a voice behind an ear that says, you're not good enough, who do you think you are? And maybe you've been believing it. Now's a chance to actually have a trial, internal dialogue, and say, I'm actually having a trial. I am judge and jury, and I get to decide, you're a liar, you're not telling the truth. Now's the time for me to step into awesomeness and be able to give the gifts and talents that I have.
Right.
And everyone's gifts and talents are different. What we're taught, or what we are conditioned to believe, is a lot of this, there's only one, or there's only a couple, even
Exactly.
from an early age, right? Yeah, like some of the childhood games, right? King of the Hill. It even paints the picture that there's one king on one hill.
Right.
Well, what if I wanted to be queen on the right, queen of the throne over here? So it's really going deep into, what are the things that I believe? Why do I believe them?
Mm-hmm.
Who gave me that thought? Who gave me that idea? Does it really serve me well? Another one is the early bird gets the worm. And
Oh gosh, yes.
right? I'm like, who said that? And what if I don't even want worms? What if I'm looking for frogs and flies, right? Like these are things that we're conditioned to believe. And then because these are thoughts, these
Right.
thoughts drive hormones in our body, cortisol that creates stress, and then
Exactly.
these negative feelings of I'm not good enough, or of anger or fear.
Right.
And because we've been social distancing, the hormone that combats cortisol, the stress hormone, is the oxytocin. That's our connection to one another.
Right.
And then when we don't have that, we don't have that fighting, that internal, really how we're hardwired, which is for connection,
Right.
to have the cuddling, to have the connection, the touch, which is why virtual conversations, being able to connect, see each other in a camera, give some high fives or some hugs, or even go into a virtual
Right.
reality where we can stand side by side and feel that connection virtually is so important. So that as women, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, we can stand firm in who we are and then give all the gifts we have.
Oh, very well said. That is so amazing, and it's so true, right? When we look at that, I'm listening to you. And you're talking about this King of the Hill thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
if you can take different games like that are putting, say one person at the top. It's like, okay, you have three parts of yourself. You have your higher consciousness, you have your subconscious, and you have your consciousness, right? So why not go into the inner workings of who you are and put yourself at the top of that hill? Whether it's the king or the queen, and you have masculine and feminine sides. So maybe you can put your king queen together up there, right? And really have that balance and harmony. So again, when we look at words and we look at, different games and things that are played, there's sometimes a lot of subconscious messages that we don't see or hear. So when you can start pulling that out and start saying, hey, where can I incorporate that in my life? Where can I, instead of individual and separate, where can I bring that together in harmony? Right? And so that's I have to say that is probably one of my greater assets, to be able to do that when people talk to me about certain things, right? And they're sharing what they're doing and it's just not going in the right direction. It's just not, happening, but they don't know how to word it, right? And it's like, okay, what if, let's just play the what if game, right? Because people don't want to be told what to do. But if we do the what ifs, the pretends, right?
Yeah.
And give them that different perspective. If you take this and just kind of tweak it and shift it and like this, right? They're like, how did you get that out of that? Oh my gosh, it's brilliant, And again, it's because you move yourself out of it. So when you're not of it, but you're still in it, you can see the forest for the trees. But when you're of it, at the same time you're in it, then you do not see the trees in the forest, right?
Yeah. It's like blinders, or this, you only can see so much.
Right.
I do a lot of jigsaw puzzles, so anybody watching out there who does jigsaw puzzles. So, oh, you do? See, yes. They're a great way, especially when you're thinking about what it is you want to create or what you want to put together or how you're trying to put the pieces of things together. So often, how we talk about ourselves is like a
Right.
jigsaw puzzle where it's like, well, I've got this piece over here and I've got this piece over here, and we think they're not connected. They're
Right.
connected because they're all attached to you. Our job is to figure out how they go together.
Right.
Just like the jigsaw puzzle pieces. Yeah, you have pieces over here and pieces over here. However, they're for the same picture. We just have to figure out how they fit together.
Yeah,
And
especially
sometimes
those
I
that
love
have
it.
all the same colors and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's the same color up in that corner as it is down in here, and you're like, oh my goodness, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's two greens. As I keep working, I'll be able to figure out if it's this green or this green. And that's the whole point, is to keep working.
Right.
Keep working at it. It can be small steps. Every small step leads to something bigger or eventually creates something.
Right. Yeah, it's filling in all those blanks, all those holes, finding all those pieces to this, and it's not just 100 pieces or 1,000 pieces; it's 1 billion pieces because it's all life, right? You know, it's interesting that you use the theme of the puzzle because the course that I was talking about a little bit earlier, right, was putting those pieces together. It's the action steps of that puzzle, and we actually have it, you know, the puzzle behind the connection, right, the mindset connection. So it's just like, oh wow, you know.
That's great.
Yeah. So, but life is like a puzzle, you know, and again, you can make it as difficult as you want, or you can make it as easy as you want, right? You know, so again, the simplicity of life is there, but we like to make it hard. And again, it goes back to that programming, right? As a child, you know, and even as a young adult, you're told, you know, if you don't work hard, if it's not a difficult thing, then it can't be real. Or, you know, it's not going to be good enough if you don't work. You know, it has to be hard. It's like, wow, some of the crazy program that we've got instilled in our genetic, because now it's going down generations. You know, the science has proven that it's passed down. A lot of this is passed down, right?
Yeah, it's like the hard work pays off. Yes, and so does easy. The path to peace is what I like to call it. Follow
Right.
the path to peace. And the badge of honor around the busyness. I'm in a lot of mom groups. I have younger children, 12 and 9, and the mom groups that can exist around, well, my kid's in this, and this, especially before the pandemic. It was like, you got a badge if your kid was involved in something every day. Well, why? And the busyness that takes over actually can stop us from tapping into our mind and the power that's there.
Right.
Really the intuition
Right.
of what we are good at, what we can be doing, what we should be doing to make the world around us better.
Right. You know, when you make the world inside of you greater, the world around you has to change. It's just that reflection of, right? So if you're in conflict in here, you're going to be in conflict out there. If you live in fear here, you're going to attract that fear out there, right? You know, because it's all energy, right? It's all energy. You know, and
Yeah.
yeah. And I like what you said about being busy, right? Because, you know, it's the being busy. You have to step back and take a look at that. You know, are you busy being busy? Are you busy being productive? Because if you're not productive, you're destructive, right? And I like, you know, some of the other things that you were saying, you know, to find that peace thing, right? You know, we're in the duality world, right? So our pendulum goes over here and our pendulum goes over here. And, you know, what extremes are you on? You know, so it's like, how do you bring that down here onto that path of harmony,
Yes.
right? Because everyone's path of harmony is different. And you have a choice. You can stay over here on this side of the fence or you can stay on this side of the fence. You can't be on both sides at the same time. Totally impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You might jump back and forth 1,000,000,000 miles an hour, you know, past the speed of light, but you can't be there at the same time on either side. So if you want to be happy, then you better stay on the happy side. But if you want to be miserable or sad, then stay over there. And again, that's your free will. But you can't have them both. Right?
Right. Yeah, and your choices, how you're living out your choices, because some people are like, well, I don't know. I find that sometimes clients that come to me, especially when they're searching,
Right.
they say one thing, what they're doing is another, and that's the gap that exists between the yes, I want happiness, and but I'm miserable.
Right.
So what you're saying is you want happiness. All of your choices and what you're doing is giving you something else. So we have to bring those two things together. We have to close the gap that exists.
Right. You know, and
that's
that
hard to
it does, and you know, and that goes right back to what we mentioned earlier, right? That you're too close to the forest to see the trees, because again, it's that old habit that just is automatically playing in the subconscious. It's what's stored in that cell, so it's on autopilot, right? And a lot of, we just don't recognize the autopilots because it's what we do. It's our personality trait. And so it's all about beginning to recognize the things that you don't want, recognizing the things that hide that awesomeness of you, right? And so that you can now work around that and start to discover that true awesomeness of who you are, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So when you start working, with your clients, Roshana, what are some of the little steps that you help walk them through? Can you give the audience a little opportunity to see how you structure what you do, and then what your clients are starting to feel or experience, without feeling inundated or overwhelmed, because a lot of times that happens too, right?
Yeah, it can. So a lot of times the clients that they come to me with a presenting problem, I'll say. Things like business leaders that come to me and say, I need to perform better, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten feedback, I need to be better. And then we start with, well, let's just talk about where you are. Tell me how things are going now. Walk me through your day. Then we start talking about family. So anyone that coaches with me and they're like, I want to talk about business only. And I'm like, well, that's not really how this works, because you're one
Right.
body, you have one soul. How you are in your family, how you are in other relationships is directly related to how you're performing at work,
Yep.
because you're one person. So we talk a lot about holistically, who are you? What happens in your day? And then I do a full history around family. Tell me about your mom. Tell me about your dad. Tell me about any siblings that you have, any exes, because all of that matters, because they're all relationships that have either given you something or taken away from you, probably
Right.
both. And so that history allows me to see the patterns, because again, I'm looking at their picture
Mm-hmm.
from the outside to start to see the pattern that exists. And that pattern is then what we go deep into understanding, okay, the behaviors that are there, and helping them make the connections of, can you see how when you were 5 and you were being yelled at for trying to clean your room really well and you were doing the best you could, but it wasn't good enough for whatever reason with your parents, that's their stuff. We're going to talk about
Right.
yours. And now at 35, you're trying to do the best you can in this role, and you keep redoing it until it's perfect, and perfect doesn't exist. So we have to break that mental construct down. And then there's a full process through the different types of, depending on the coaching, the matrix
Mm-hmm.
therapies, the NLP practices that I walk my clients through. And it really depends on their submodalities and the work that they're doing.
Oh,
So
thank you
that,
for that. That's so real. And again, a lot of people want to separate it. It's like, this is business. What I do over here, it doesn't affect what I do over here, at home or on vacation or whatever, right? Which is kind of a false belief. It's a denial that we go into to separate that. Now, I'm an advocate of, you don't bring your business to the bedroom, so to speak, and your bedroom to the business, right? There's that line. But again, how you perform, and that was key what you said, how you perform in those relationships, the relationships with yourself, the relationships in your home environment, the relationships in your business environment, because you have to look at, when you're up there on stage, when you're giving a presentation, everyone out there in that audience
mm-hmm.
is like your children, right? So you're going to respond on that stage the same way you respond at home in your relationship with your spouse or with your children or with family members, right? Because it's just that automatic pilot thing. So they really do hook together.
They go together.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Beverly, but I've seen with people that I've coached, and also when I've been in different conferences, etc., the Q&A period is when you really see a person.
Oh gosh, yeah.
When it's, to your point around, if the audience is like your children. So if an audience member asks a question that triggers the speaker and then they pounce on them, or they say something that's really kind of curt, or they shut them down rather than opening it up in some way,
Right.
you know that it's like, okay, that person has some work to do, and we're all evolving. It's a part of understanding that performance, how you show
Right.
up, or what you're
Right.
open to, even to the point of being a speaker. You may ask me a question and I may not have the answer, and I can say, I don't know, Beverly, like, that's great, we should talk more about that, or what do you think, or let's explore it another time.
Right. Right. And that, I like what you just said there, because that's so true. When you're up there on stage and somebody puts you on the spot like that, it's like, wow, that is a great question, which gives you time to revamp and reshuffle a little bit. And then at the same time, it's like, that's a personal, question that and it's going to take more time than we have up here in the stage. So, following, this one, when I leave the stage, come and find me. I'll be in the back of the room, and then we'll go somewheres, and I will answer your question for you at that time, right? So now it gives you time to revamp. But again, it will trigger things. Your audience will trigger things. And you have to know, like you said, they're wanting to take it to that next level. But they have to recognize what that next level is. What are those trigger points? Because you're going to be continuously triggered no matter how much you've worked on yourself. I mean, when I started working on my journey, it started back in 1974. Well, I guarantee in 1974, back in Iowa in the Midwest, there was nothing even remotely close to what there is here today. I mean, zero, zip, nada. So you're on your own at that time, and that's why connecting with your higher consciousness, with that God essence and stuff, to really start paying attention to what you're hearing. A lot of times, like, again, another false truth, where we've been told, hey, if you're hearing voices up here, you're going crazy, right? You're going to get hauled away with the white coats,
Mm-hmm.
And that was our belief back then, but at the same time, if you don't listen to that inner voice, because that inner voice is your guidance, right? And now science has proven that, that inner voice is where you need to be, for guidance and direction and protection and understanding, and it can rock on both sides of the fence, right? Because you can spiral yourself with fear and go into the shames and the guilts and the griefs and the angers and everything, and go into that, abyss, and once you get stuck in that abyss, sometimes, it's so dark in there that it's like you can't see your way out. And the theory and the talk about, go to the light, go to the light, go to the light. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but when you're in that deep dark hole, you can't even see the light, right? And so how do you find that? And personally, I'm right there with you. What you said right at the beginning of this conversation, you said that you believe that COVID was stuck here on purpose to take us back and take a look. And I would have to agree with that it was Mother Nature's way of saying, hey, I have slapped you guys silly for a lot of years with all the pollution and all the destruction and everything that you're doing, not only to me but to yourself. It's a wake up time, So I'm just gonna send you all off by yourself, until you come in here and find that self.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The way I've articulated it is, it's God's way of getting our attention so that we can find out who we really are on the inside, who He's called us to be, and how we're supposed to give that, and what does that look like.
Right.
So that we don't get caught up in performing or trying to be something that we're not. We can actually stand firm, whole, and healed,
Right.
and in the light that we are, because there is a lot of darkness. To your point, they both exist. They've always existed.
Exactly.
And they always will. We each have choices around, well, am I going to be in the light, or am I going to be in the dark? Or am I going to be searching for light, or am I going to be searching for darkness?
Right.
That's the choice.
Yeah. And it is just that simple. Easy? No. Simple?
No.
Yes.
Yep.
Look at those two words, right? Easy is at the beginning of the dictionary, right? But hurry up and get to the end of the dictionary where you get to simple. right? So you don't have to stay, and that's, and again, you don't have to stay in that struggle. And again, that's choice. You can't be in the light where you're in the dark. God's not going to go over here in the dark because he's not dark. He's light. Or she's light. Whatever it is, And again, we look at the energies. You have your positive charges and your negative charges. It's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It's what are you fueling your life's beliefs, right? Are you charging them with the negative that's going to spiral you south because the negative charge is at the south? That's the down, right? Or are you going to charge it with that positive, which is going to take you to the north, which is going to pull you up into, the light and the happiness and the joy of, So again, it's your choice, right?
It's your choice. Yeah. And we're hardwired for connection. We're hardwired, and we have a system in us. The system works for us in the hardwiring for connection, for love, for light. However, that same system can be used against us if we don't guard the true essence of who we are and what we believe. And even some of the things we talked about, those word patterns matter.
Oh,
the things said matter. What you say to yourself matters.
Yeah. And,
sure.
And then looking, too, at yourself. Are you living your life the way you dreamed it to be? Because you need to bring your dreams back. Now is your opportunity to bring it back. Or are you, or have you been living your life the way somebody else thinks you should be living it? And so you're going to follow what they say. Because why? You want to be and feel accepted and not rejected or judged, right? Well, the rejection and the judgment starts in here. Where is your inner conflict going on? It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It matters what you think of you. So how you perform for yourself is what's going to take you to that fulfillment and that purpose. And that's what you're doing here, Rashana, is helping people discover that awesomeness by really beginning to recognize the unawesomeness that they've taken on as being who they are, when they know inside, deep inside, that that's not who they are, but I'm stuck in this abyss. How do I get out, right?
Yeah. How do I get out? And the negativity will come. So one of the things that happens is these situations, adversity, bullying, conflict, they come.
Right.
And they come to teach us who we are if we're really listening.
Right.
If we're really paying attention. There are these characters, I call them awesomeness stealers. We see them.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, awesomeness stealers. One of the characters is a minimizer. These are people that get joy out of making you feel small.
Right.
And they seek you out. So if you're listening and you're like, I might have a minimizer, or there's someone on my job or in my family, every time I'm with them, they take it upon themselves to say something negative.
Right.
It's because you have awesomeness. And they're seeking you out because you have something. The question is to pay attention to what they're saying to you and what they're doing to you, because it's actually a little breadcrumb leading you to your gift or talent. So the last time someone said something to you, maybe Beverly, around like, you're doing another show and you're just trying so hard to grow your business, and they may have tried to make you feel small or minimize you, that was actually the sign to keep going.
Exactly, and we need to recognize. I'm glad you said that, because it is that recognition, and when someone is in that bullying aspect, or wanting to minimize, like you put it, to knock you down, to keep you, beneath, so to say, beneath them, is because they're working through issues in themselves, and they want to be better. They want to be better than you. They want to be on top of it. So they may be miserable, but they don't want you to know that they're miserable, but they're going to make you look worse than them so that they can look better to themselves, right? So when you begin to recognize why people are doing the things that they're doing, you can, and I tell my clients, learn how to be that sounding board and not the sponge, right? Because the sponge, you absorb it all in here, and then it piles on the crap that you already have. Because 95% of all of this blockage that holds you back from, shining the light on the world of your awesomeness, isn't even yours. It's everybody else's, because all thought's magnetic, right? And so you pile it on. You think you're Charles Atlas or something. You can carry the weight of the world. No. Right? So give it back to them. Be that sounding board. Don't absorb it, right? You got enough of your own crap, right? And so let them have their own whatever, and just like, whatever, right? Whew, sure glad I ain't down that road no more, right? And really, recognize that in yourself and acknowledge it, So it goes back to what we've been talking about this whole conversation, is recognize what's right here in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can start making the changes. And it was interesting, and I've used this analogy. Someone, oh my God, a couple of months ago mentioned on my show. Beverly, she says, do you know the difference between change and transformation? And it's like, wow, I've never been asked that question. Now, to put it that way, it's like, very interesting. So when we talked about it, change is something that happens because we make changes all the time. But in that change, if it's not solidified into a transformation, once you hit transformation, you don't go back to those old habits. But if you're just making changes and stuff, you're going to find yourself in that change going back to the old habit.
Okay.
So it's not a completion of what you're looking to shift from until you hit that transformation. Because once you hit transformation, there's no going back.
Yeah, it's a whole new. That's what when I think of transformation.
Right.
I think
It's completely reformed and rewired and altered to the degree that you're not going to fall back into. And it's like, wow, I really like the way they put that. It's like, yeah. Right? And same thing with gratitude and appreciation. They are not the same. When I was asked that, it's like, oh my God, now I got to think about this. I've been put on the spot a couple of times, right? And so I'm saying, okay, being grateful, you're grateful for, all these different great things that have happened in your life. You can be grateful and appreciate them at the same time. But sometimes we can appreciate the things that we don't like, so things that may have been pointed out to us that is like, oh, well, that wasn't very nice. That kind of hit me in the gut, right? But it's like, I appreciate you for pointing that out. I ain't grateful to it yet, till I fix it. But I appreciate you pointing that out, so you can appreciate the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak. But you're not going to be grateful for the good, the bad, and the ugly. But you will appreciate it because now it gives you that opportunity to make the change and make the transformation, to do what this show is all about, becoming that better you, right?
Those are powerful questions that you were asked, and definitely things to think about. Appreciation is on that continuum towards maybe you're grateful for it, or maybe there are some things that eventually you just learn to appreciate them and leave them right there.
Right.
Kind of like sometimes you have to love people from afar. I can appreciate that and not necessarily bring it.
Not necessarily like it, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it was interesting because I knew she was searching for something. I didn't know what she was searching for, but I just gave her my interpretations, right? And she goes, yes. Out of the thousands of people I've asked this question to, nobody said you don't have to like it. Oh my gosh, she's going on, and it's like, okay. It's like it was a surprise because she jumped on it right away, and I'm like, at first like, what did I say?
Is that good? You don't even remember.
I was like, well, what did I say? It was like, wow. But when you start to really think about those things, and words do play and have a big role in what's going on in your life. And you probably do this consciously and maybe even unconsciously, because we all do that from time to time, where a word that impacts us, that takes us into the abyss, so to speak, right? So when you can take a word that is going to give you basically the same outcome, but shift the word, right, into something different. So you're using that awesomeness self, right? You can call yourself awesome, but you could also call yourself magnificent. right? So let's just say growing up, you were being told, what do you think, you're awesome or something? You're crazy, right? Boom. So when you say find your awesomeness, that's going to trigger like, I don't want to be awesome because everybody told me I couldn't be. But you can say, let's find that magnificent self, right? It's like, yeah. But it's going to give you that same fulfillment and that discovery, right? So really begin to recognize those words that trigger, something that creates an uncomfortability. But recognize. Because if you don't start with the recognition of an issue, how are you going to overcome and go beyond that to move those things out of the way to get to that awesomeness or that magnificent, that beautifulness, that essence of divine, right?
Yeah, that phenomenal, outstanding, amazing, whatever that word is for you, that life, that definition of what your success is, not somebody else's success or not even the definition someone else has given you.
Right.
Your internal, peaceful, joyful, this is who I am, this is what I want my life to be.
Right, and that's very well said. And going into the successes and the failures, right? Sometimes your greatest failure ends up being your greatest success.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So don't.
For those
that's
failures.
right. Don't be so fast to judge yourself on that failure, right? Because you know what? It's not a failure. It's just a way that didn't work, and it's not the whole thing. Right? So you start looking at, okay, what are the things that worked in this? And what are the things that didn't work? So I can get them out of the way. It's the same thing that you're doing to discover that awesomeness of the spirit of who you are. Because God doesn't make junk. Right? Your belief in your free will to think crazy stuff up here is what makes the junk. And it doesn't make you junk. It just makes the junk get in the way of the awesomeness of who you are. So again, it's that play on words. It's that duality. And just the simpleness of it to get to that discovery. So, oh my gosh, Roshana, what you're doing here is just so awesome. So awesome. And, again, I want to say, listen to what's being said here. If you enjoyed what she said, if you enjoyed this whole conversation, if you want to be a part of the mindset shift and putting those pieces together, right? Reach out, connect wherever you need to connect and feel comfortable. Are you going to be able to connect with everybody? No. And go beyond that fear of not being, thinking that I have to stay connected to this person that brings misery into my life because they're the only friend that I have. Well, seriously, give it some good thought, because I'll stake my life on this one. There's billions and billions of people in the universe, and you know what? If you don't eliminate the people that you think are your friends that are holding you in that predictableness of misery, then you're doing yourself an injustice and them an injustice, because they're not going to grow either. But there is someone out there that's going to really like you and love you for who you are and not who you think you need to be, right? And so, let Roshana and I help you help yourself to that discovery of the essence and the beauty and the awesomeness of who you are. So, Roshana, what is one thing you can leave the audience with that will give them that little boost, shall we say, to move away from the predictability of who they are and start to look at where that awesomeness is?
I would leave the audience with this question: what good is a gift that's never given?
Whoa.
All the gifts that you have, all the talents that you have, what good are they if they aren't given to the world around you? And that could be a friend next door, that could be a family member, it could be your next talk. Whatever it is, give it. That's what you're here to do, is give. And so that's what I would leave everyone with is give your awesomeness, your amazingness, your phenomenalness, all those gifts and talents.
Right. That just really struck a chord. And it's not only that giving, because other people are giving as well. So open to receiving the gifts that are coming to you as well as the gifts that you're giving to others. Now, if others receive it, great. If they don't, hey, it's their loss. I want to share this one last little analogy that was given to me. St. Peter, right, met this person that died, right, at the pearly gates and said, it's time to go for a walk and see what went on down there. And it's like, ooh, okay. So St. Peter is taking them down this long hallway with all these doors, right? Some were gold and some were different, all different colors and flashing. And they're like, wow, St. Peter, do I have one of these doors? And St. Peter says, we're getting there, right? It's like, ooh, okay. And they're walking and walking. And all of a sudden, here's the door with their name on it. And St. Peter says, go ahead, open it. And they open the door. And they're like, what the heck is this? There's all these boxes in there. All different sizes, shapes, colors, just some of them are smashed up, beat to heck, and everything else. And it's like, this is just a pile of boxes. And the guy goes, all right, St. Peter, so what is that? What's all this box junk stuff in here, right? And St. Peter says, those are all the gifts that God gave you that you didn't receive. Whoa. So what you just said just even creates a greater impact in your giving, but also in your receiving, right? Yeah. Whew. Okay, so with that, we are going to call this a show. Roshana, it has been an honor having you here on the show, and the conversation and everything we've had, and the work that you're doing is phenomenal, right? And so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
So we'll have to definitely get you back on the show, right?
Yes, would love to.
All right, so it's time to say go out there now and be that best you that you can be, because Roshana and I are going to be the best we that we can be. Bye, everyone, and we'll see you all on the next show.